What's going on, everybody? It's Jamie.
And John.
And welcome to the A-To-Zed Reseller podcast. How's everything going this week, John? I see you're on the couch.
Yeah, I'm on the couch today. I had an unfortunate little injury last night. I bowl in a league, and don't ask me how. We must have been playing full contact bowling or something. Somehow I hurt my leg a little bit. I hurt my knee. So I've been working from home. Well, I work from home anyway, but I was working from my couch today, feet up and painkillers in me and laptop literally on my lap. So yeah, a little bit of an uncomfortable day, but hey, I'm grateful to be able to do it at least. I did have to go to the post office today and mail out, pretty good bulk of orders from over the long weekend. So that was a little bit painful and uncomfortable, but that's part of the process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know I've had some health issues in the last, more than I care in the last few years. Seems like the older I get, the more sneak up on me. But yeah, it is difficult. But that is the one thing when you are running your own business, these things still have to happen. So, you probably could get some help from your girlfriend or family member, whoever. But yeah, but you're responsible to do all these things, right? You're the main man running the business.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's true.
Yeah. So I think today we were going to start the podcast off. I think episode 5 too. We're getting up there, but we're going to talk about a topic that we did, or that I just threw out there on the Reseller A Facebook group. I basically just threw out a little poll asking people in the first quarter, what they felt like was their best platform. And it's not really a surprise to me that eBay was number one. Poshmark was a pretty, not really that close, but it was a definitive number 2, followed by Etsy, Facebook Marketplace. And then I think the only other thing I seen somebody do like an upvote for was somebody had put Amazon as a marketplace. So no votes for Whatnot, no votes for Depop, no votes for other. So it seems like eBay, Poshmark are basically where it's at. I wanted to take a look too. It seems like you went with eBay, right? That was your vote.
I did. Yeah, I went with eBay. I list everything, all the clothing stuff. Again, I mostly sell clothes, so I list everything on both eBay and Poshmark. But eBay gets the win because I also sell all the video games and other hard goods and things like that over there. I could cross list all that stuff over to Poshmark as well, but I find it just sells well on eBay, and I don't know. I just haven't bothered. So yeah, eBay's the winner, but it's really only for that reason. Otherwise, if we ignored those things, I'd say Poshmark and eBay were very close for me.
Yeah, I think for me, I did put Poshmark, and I wanted to give Poshmark a little bit of love more than I necessarily think that maybe it. I think eBay probably was actually my number one, but because I sell in Canada and the US, so I just did about 5 minutes ago. I decided just to pull my numbers for the last 12 months from Poshmark.ca and Poshmark.com. And I just wrote myself a little cheat sheet here. So in the last 12 months, would have been from March to March. On the US one, I did $6,698 US, which is about $9,000 Canadian. And then on the .ca, it was just over 10. It was like 10,400 on just that platform in the last 12 months. So that's pretty good. I do think my eBay is better. The one thing, the way I look at it though, is on eBay, when I look at that big number, because I don't break my numbers down like you into every single category, all of my shipping for everything really comes out of my eBay money, because eBay, you're paying shipping, right? Like that number I'm giving you, that's the actual money that hits my account, right? In eBay, there's a lot more factors that go in there. I could figure out, and I'm sure my accountant has already figured out as she's doing my taxes right now, the exact eBay numbers. But for me, I'm just sort of, it's a guesstimate. But yeah, I think that's pretty good. And the reason why I think I wanted to give Poshmark a little bit of love is because I've seen recently so many Canadian resellers just kind of say, it doesn't work. I don't get sales on it. I don't like it. I'm kind of giving up on it. And I'm just saying these numbers just to say there's actual real money there. So, I think Poshmark is a viable option, and it's really an easy one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you 100% there. And I saw some recent stuff about that as well. And I want to tell you, that has not been the case for me at all. Poshmark has been on fire the last couple of weeks for me, especially. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if people are getting their tax money back and they're like, hey, let's go spend some money. I have no idea. But sales are up. Poshmark is way up. To put it in perspective, you shared a couple of numbers there. I didn't do a deep dive on the last year, but I did recently look at my Q1 numbers so far, total revenue, and a little bit. I have an idea of what that breakdown is between eBay and Poshmark. So I sell part time, and my revenue so far for 2024 is about $12,000. So, I mean, now, yes, that's including like the eBay, that's including like the shipping that people are buying or paying and stuff. And then, of course, that's not what I actually clear. But out of that 12,000, I'd say that, you know, it might only be like 8,000 eBay, 4,000 Poshmark. So it's really not that big of a difference, considering that out of that 8,000 from eBay, probably 20% of that needs to be deducted off for, you know, those fees and the shipping and all that kind of stuff. Maybe it's only like 10-15% for shipping, but so it is actually probably a lot closer than those overall numbers make it seem. But yeah, Poshmark, man, it's been on fire for me lately. I would say about 2 weeks ago, I just something just happened just like that, and all of a sudden within like 15 minutes I had 3 orders on Poshmark, a couple people making bundles. And so it's not even like I've seen, you know, people talk about how Poshmark's only good if you're using automation tools. It's only good if you're using Posh Sidekick and sending out those offers for you automatically. I can say probably 80% of the sales I've made in the last 2 weeks on Poshmark are because people have initiated making their own bundles or sending me offers. Yeah. So while I'd like to actually give Posh Sidekick credit for the for this, you know, uptick, it just hasn't been that. And so it's weird. I'm not complaining. It's just I don't understand what's happened the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I feel the same. And I'm going to tell you, like, my first 6 to 8 months on Poshmark, when I first started, like a madman, I was sharing my closet because that's what I heard everybody say you need to do. And when I started doing it, it made a huge difference. And yeah. I would do my entire closet about 3 times a day. I would try to engage as much as I could on my free time on my phone. Now, mind you, I had a job where I had a lot of free time and it wasn't that big of a deal to do. So if you put in the time, you don't have to have automation. The reason why you want to have automation is so you don't have to do that, right? Like, it's just taking that headache away. And for me, I happily would pay to have that automation so I don't have to do that. If you just list a Poshmark, you're not going to sell on Poshmark. You will sell a few things or a very, you know, desirable thing for sure. But if you want to sell all those little items that need attention, you either have to put in the time and the effort, or you have to get some sort of automation.
Yeah, and that's completely fair for sure. But like you say, I mean, it's worth it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Paying the automation, it's going to make you those few sales. But
yep. Yeah, and as far as, you know, I know Etsy was a number 3. When I look back to my year, I had good numbers last year on Etsy because everything I sold on Etsy was like $100+. It was all jerseys that were higher value. It was all DVD VCR combos and electronics. Everything I sold on Etsy was bigger value. So it's like a lot less effort on Etsy for a lot. It's you just can't find those items all the time. So it's just so hard to say that that's going to be your number one thing, unless, you know, vintage is the only thing you do and you have access to all these different things. I was surprised to see Marketplace so low on that. I thought because when I have people ask me questions on, especially on YouTube, a lot of people are trying to transition from Marketplace seller into online and they're not sure how to do it. So I thought Marketplace would be higher voted in that for sure.
Yeah, maybe people who, like, I don't know, maybe just they didn't vote on it for whatever reason. But yeah, like Marketplace, for me, Marketplace can be very good. You know, it's a little bit hit or miss for me now, especially where I'm in a little bit more rural of an area. But I find like Marketplace is one of those things where it can be a really good tool. Sometimes not even only for selling, but sometimes I do sourcing through Marketplace where I'm finding, like, I saw something today and I knew it was too good to be true, so I didn't pull the trigger on it. But, like, you know, sometimes you'll see some really, really good deals there and you're just like, wow. So, you know, do your due diligence. Don't send money to people, you know, like, and get scammed or whatever. And I could tell that this was a weird one because their profile, like, they had their item listed somewhere, but their profile and all their activity shows that they're like 3 provinces away, and it's like, okay, that's sketchy. But yeah, I've sourced a lot of stuff through Facebook Marketplace, and where I'll like set something up with people like, hey, do you mind holding on to this until the weekend? I'm coming your way anyway. Especially for me, like I drive like an hour, hour and a half sometimes to go sourcing on a weekend. And then the profits I'll make from that Facebook pickup pay for all the other stuff that I sourced that day. So it's like, I don't know. It's a cool thing. I like to flip things. I try not to like buy something on Facebook Marketplace and then flip it the same day on Facebook Marketplace. I feel a little weird about that, so I try to have a little bit more class. But I mean, the opportunity is there for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes it's, you know what? I'm sure as soon as I say this, I'm pretty sure you would agree. Sometimes the pictures that somebody puts up there is the reason why they're not selling it too, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
you have something that's a good item and you took terrible pictures of it. You know, I can look past it because I'm looking for certain items, but you know, because I'm looking to flip it too and realize I could clean something up and understand values of things. But yeah, like pictures can make a huge difference in how much you ask for something.
yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people who do sell on Facebook unfortunately kind of fall into. They, for whatever reason, they think maybe they don't need to be as professional or careful or whatever, or they can slap any old photo up there and it'll sell because it's just Facebook. But I mean, at the end of the day, people who are buying things, whether it's on Facebook, Poshmark, eBay, whatever, I mean, they're people who want to make sure they're not buying complete crap. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to take at least one nice photo so that people can clearly see what it is. If your photo's blurry, or if there's like literal garbage in the picture on top of the table you're taking, the photo of your item, like, come on, take 3 minutes, 2 minutes, do a little bit of prep work, get yourself a clear table, and just take a nice, clean photo. And it goes a long way.
Okay. Yeah. I agree, and I think that's a big thing, especially on Facebook. I just so much of that. So I think the second topic we're going to try to get into here was basically what you can do to create sales, and then maybe even we'll follow it up with maybe why your items aren't selling, and that right there is a good example right there of photos, right? So what you can do to create sales, like I think one of the things you can obviously do is if we're talking about eBay, you can promote your listings if you're not promoting listings. Now you don't have to, but it is going to get you up in search without you having to do much effort. I know you talked, I think you said you do 4%, right?
I do 3% on everything.
3% everything. I think I used to do 4% and I dropped it back down to 2. I do think it's valuable enough for me personally that I still want to. I just have been doing experiments over the last year or so at different percentages. At one time I had all my shoes at 4%. And then, I went back down to 2, and I don't know. I just play around with it. I do think there's value to it because it is getting you, above other people in search for sure. And then I think going back over some old listings, you know what I mean, and just kind of fixing things up, whether it's titles or whether you did take bad pictures, or I've just recently found a few things that were sized correctly, maybe in the description, but in the actual listing, because I had probably copied and pasted somebody else's listing
Right.
that large, and it was actually a medium or something like that. So sometimes just going back and fact checking that everything is accurate can really help, and just kind of doing a little cleanup.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What I do these days is, so right now, the last couple of months in Q1, so far what I've been doing is not listing a ton. I am listing every day, but it might just be like 2 or 3 items. So I've slowed down on the amount that I'm listing, but I'm trying to get more like quality and stuff like that. But on top of that, when I do find myself with 5, 10, 15 minutes of free time, I'll go in and I'll usually every couple of days go in and sort my eBay listings by ending soonest, so I can see a range of stuff. It's not just stuff that's been newly listed. I might see things that are like a year old, might see stuff that's just a week or 3 weeks old or 4 weeks old or something like that. But I can scroll through and maybe scroll like 10, 15 items and just do just that. Check, is this a really just bad photo? Do I need to just take another photo? Is that the issue here? This is just not popping. Or, check price, do things like that. A lot of times I will actually end those and sell similar. And I know we've talked about that before, but on some of those older listings that I just haven't touched in a while and they're not moving, it's like, all right, let's just end this listing, hit sell similar, keep your photos. If your photos are good, go in, clean up the title. Like you say, fact check, make sure everything's accurate in those item specifics. And usually my price drops, 20% or something like that as well if it's been kicking around for a while. But I find just giving a little bit of attention to those old listings, then sure enough, they end up selling very soon. And because they get that fresh new bump up to the end of, they're not just dead out there in the ether somewhere. Um, so yeah, I do a lot of that. And then I think with the promoted listings, I know some of the pushback that I've received personally on promoted listings is, oh well, that's just Feebay trying to get more money and blah blah blah. It's like, well, yeah, but if 3% or 4% is the difference of you being able to sell this and make money or not, then maybe your item's not that good to begin with. That's the reality of it.
Yep.
But if you're selling something that there aren't a lot of similar items listed, and you've listed even at like 2 or 3%, you're probably going to be at the top of the search results. If you're in a really saturated market, you're trying to, sell size medium Ralph Lauren polos along with 7 million other people. Yeah, of course you're going to need a higher percentage in it, and then maybe it isn't worth it. But then maybe you shouldn't be selling that item because it's super saturated anyways. So I don't know. I kind of push back a little bit on that.
Yeah, I agree too. And like I said, it's a personal opinion whether you should do that or not. My opinion is you should, or for me, it's the right thing to do. If it's not the right thing for you to do, maybe you can look at another thing like run sales, right? I do that whenever I think my sales are really, really low and I don't really see I don't have a bunch of really good inventory that I think is going to just explode my store again. I'll run sales, whether they're 10%, 15%, 20%. 25%. I don't normally go any higher than 25% on eBay for sales, but I do know people who will blow stuff out at 50% off just to try to get rid of stuff. But if you don't want to monkey around with all your listings, I think that's a great way to go. But I do think to run sales, I think you have to have a store. Is that right?
Yeah, you do have to have at least that basic store subscription, which I think is about $22 a month or something like that, Canadian, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, then you get access to that marketing tab, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's the marketing tab. And then you can run those promotions. I like running sales. Actually, that reminds me, I haven't run one on eBay. Well, I haven't had one active for a couple of weeks now, but I like to sometimes do like seasonal sales. So now that we're getting into warmer weather, let's run a deep discount on all my like winter jackets and winter boots and things like that. I mean, yeah, I can hold them until next year. I've got the space to do it. And that season will come around again and whatever. And it's fine. Like it's not a big deal. Like my house isn't filled with winter jackets, but, I think it's a good thing to do. And I like to, let's say I've got a bunch of winter jackets that are valued in the $40 to $50 range. Maybe I'll put them all at like 25% off, maybe even 30% off and bring them down a little bit. Cause I know that my margin personally is I'm still going to be making probably between like $15 and $30 profit on each of those items, even if I discount them quite a bit. And I think that like running sales like that, yeah, it's good to boost some sales, but you can also help build a customer base that way. I think people are likely to follow sellers who do regularly put on sales or put things on discount. Like, I don't know about you. I don't know if this is a stat you ever look at, but I have 171 followers on eBay. So these people, get notified when I list new things, and I can send them a newsletter, which I've never bothered to do that. But so having 170 people, clearly they're the people. Some of them are going to be video games, some of them are going to be clothing related, but these are people who want to keep coming back and looking at what I've got, because either I'm doing those sales promotions, or I'm selling a lot of the same type of thing that's their style or something. So yeah, I don't know. Even if you don't make a lot of money from doing sales, I still think there's value in running sales because you're getting eyes on your store.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think once again, that's a personal preference if you want to run sales in your item or not. But if we just want to sort of like end this part of our topic off on a note here, like the one reason why your item is not selling, probably if you think everything else is factual or correct, probably price still, right? Like your price needs to be right on. If you're higher than the market, no one's going to buy for you. Also, if your shipping is crazy high, it's going to be tough. I mean, there are people who maybe live in the same area as you, or that are in Canada maybe as well, that, just realize that that's what the shipping costs, and they don't, they don't really think too much about that. That part of it's fine, but you really have to make sure your price is right. You can't just list something with a price that you want. It has to be a realistic price. I think the number one reason why your items would not be selling is price over anything.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? When you're outsourcing, if you are looking things up and you're checking your sold comps on eBay or whatever to try to get an idea of value, like, I mean, there's been so many times I buy something and I'm looking it up. I'm like, oh man, this just sells all day long for $50. Awesome. I'm going to pick this up. I'll list mine at $47.99 and see what happens.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, a month later, that item just doesn't sell for more than $30. There's no rhyme or reason for it. You have no idea. So like, that's another reason to go back and just keep an eye on your old listings. And for me, it's looking back at, maybe the next 10 to 15 that are about to renew, and just seeing what needs to be changed. And yeah, sometimes it is price, and you can't just assume that the sold comps mean anything. They do, but at the same time, that's always a moving target, right? So
yeah. And the only way that I think the running sales and that can factor in together, if you are the type of person who wants to maybe run a sale, being at the top end of what the selling price is gives you that wiggle room to run the sale and make your item more appealing. Like, if you price your item too low, then those are the type of people who are probably more against running sales, because they're already trying to give a big discount. On eBay, if you even just have offers on, you're going to get low ball offers anyway. If you're going to have low prices or low tier prices, you should probably just turn your offers off, or you're going to be, aggravated constantly.
Exactly. Especially if you're running like a 20% off sale, and then people are lowballing you for 20% of that price. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like those are the type of people potentially who are complain about that type of thing. But like I said, nobody's forcing you to do any of those things. It's just sort of opinion. So we're talking about sales. Might as well jump into the sale of the week.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll go first because while it's fresh on my mind here, this goes back to exactly what we were just talking about. So my sale of the week is a new with tags Stussy Hawaiian shirt. Just really nice, beautiful buttoned up men's shirt. There are occasional sold comps for that exact shirt at over $100. I've had it for a while. I've had it probably since about last summer, and I took an offer of $75. I mean, my buy cost on it was around $6, so I'm perfectly happy with that. But it came to the point where it was like, all right, well, this hasn't moved yet. Let me just double check things, and you got to be able to make some adjustments as you go. But either way, that was a great sale for me. That was my first and only ever time finding Stussy, and it happened to be new with tags. And I know that it was, big in the Y2K era. I mean, it's been around since I think the 90s or maybe even late 80s, but it was definitely like a streetwear brand back in the day when I was wearing Jenkos and Stussy. So it was just cool to find one of those, and I'm glad it finally sold for good profit too.
Yeah. So was that one actually new with tags, but was it old, or was it actually in like a new?
It was new with tags, but I think it was probably like, I don't think it was like an old, like a vintage shirt or anything like that. It was a newer style, but it probably was like 2 or 3 years old. I don't think it was brand new or anything, but
yeah, because I would imagine if you found that dead stock from like Y2K,
oh yeah,
we'd be talking about a whole different thing.
Yeah, we'd be talking hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, that's still really awesome. Yeah, so I'm about around the same price point for sale here. So I picked up a jacket at the Goodwill bins. It was a Helly Hansen jacket. And when I picked it up, I'm like, this is kind of weird because it's long. And I didn't really think much of it because it's like a rain type jacket. I think it's technically called a long Belfast jacket.
Okay.
But I didn't really know much about it. It just looks like a long zip up jacket that's just kind of comes down. So I brought it home, looked it up, sells for I sold mine for $77, which I thought was pretty good. Kept pulling it out of the bins. Super lightweight. It's like a nylon jacket, so it wouldn't have weighed very much at all.
Oh, nice.
And it was a quick sale too. It was about, I think I listed it in about a week it sold. Good time of the year, obviously, to be selling like a spring type jacket anyway. Um, but yeah, that's just one of those things where I know we're going to kind of get into trends and things here in a few minutes, but that isn't really something that, like, the only thing I knew about that was brand Helly Hansen, and I'm like, right time of year, to buy a jacket like that. I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't really assume it was going to be worth that much money, but it was. So that was a good thing. So happy to get a fast sale on that. And I've done pretty good with Helly Hansen stuff in the past. I don't hear too many people talk about it, but I seem to find it around here fairly cheap.
Yeah, I remember it being like kind of a big name, a few years ago and stuff. I don't really even like hear about it or whatever. I mean, I don't like watch TV and stuff. Maybe it's all over the place. I have no idea, but I think for the most part, from what I've understood, is that it kind of had its best days a few years ago, where it would sell just like that constantly. But the weird thing is, I don't think I've ever seen a piece of Helly Hansen out in the wild anywhere. Which, I mean, it was so common. Like everybody, had it like workwear and all the rest.
Yep.
The jackets were literally everywhere, and I don't think I ever see it. It's just really strange. It's just a
Yeah,
loose brand for some reason.
it is. I know at my old workplace, that was what we got, was either because we were like wearing freezer suits and stuff. It was like Helly Hansen, like bibbed overalls, but like insulated. Or we would get like the Tough Ducks was the other brand we would get. We'd never get like Carhartt or anything like that. But yeah, that's kind of where I remember it from, and I remember seeing how expensive it was then. And I believe like locally, do you guys have a Sports Check? Like that would
Yep.
be, yeah. So I think you can still buy that brand in Sports Check.
Okay.
It is. I don't. It's always more expensive, but yeah, I don't see people like flocking to it. I don't see it as much anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, I can't remember if that went to, I feel like it might have went to the US. I just pulled that a couple of days ago, which will be in I think my next what sold video, which I probably say in the video where it's going. I think it's going into the US. So maybe
Hmm.
just somebody there that's interested in it. But yeah, I don't know. I always have good luck with it. I'm not saying it's a Bolo brand or anything like that, but pulling it out of the bins for probably
Oh,
a dollar into 70. I mean,
yeah.
it feels like a scratch ticket at that point.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I think anytime you can pull anything like that, especially if you're getting at bins prices or cheap at like a yard sale or something, then I think that that's where a brand maybe doesn't even matter as much. And that's where we'll probably segue well into this next topic, where you're looking at, styles and trends, because certain things or certain, you know, like that was obviously an item that had a purpose. It was like nylon, like rain, great for this time of the year. Like anything that has a really good purpose and isn't just fashion. If it's cheap enough, look it up. You never know, right? Like it could sell well enough, even if it's $30 or $40. If you're getting it for like $2 or something,
Yeah.
that's a pickup every time for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not a very trendy person anywhere. Like anyway, for me, relying on trends, if I didn't watch YouTube channels and watch other people sell stuff, I wouldn't know certain brands for sure. So, I have to give a lot of credit to other resellers that way. If I see something that interests me, like anybody else, I'm going to look it up. There's things that I pick up on a regular basis that I don't need to look up or I'm comfortable picking up, but I'm not really a trend and brand guy. I'll hear things and then try to keep that in the back of my mind. And sometimes that pays off and sometimes it doesn't, because like I said, again, I'm not a trend and style guy. So like, even though Lululemon's popular and I do sell some Lululemon stuff, I don't know what ones are trending and popular. Like that's just not
Oh yeah.
something I'm good with. Right. What do you do? Do you have same thing? Are you basically other people word of mouth, or do you just look up things when you see them?
It's I I'm the same way. I'm not like, all about trends or brands or fashion or anything. Like I dress the same now as I did when I was 16, except my pants have gotten a little smaller because I don't wear the big Janko skateboarding pants and stuff anymore. But other than that, I'm still like jeans and a t-shirt guy and maybe a hoodie or something. But like, so I really have no idea. And it was because of other resellers on YouTube, and especially when I moved here and realized clothing was going to be probably my best inventory option for reselling. You get into that and you start just kind of learning some brands that do end up selling a little bit. I'm starting to get a little bit better though, and it's really just from experience. I'm starting to understand trends and styles a little bit better, kind of knowing like what does work, what doesn't work, just from, what has sold and hasn't sold in the last year and a half. But again, it's always such a moving target that it's like by the time you figure it out, the next trend has begun. So
Yeah.
So it's important, I think, for me. Like I still watch a lot of like what sold videos from other clothing resellers, across, in Canada or US, because I'm trying to keep in mind that things are ever changing, and the goalposts are always moving. And so when I start seeing, and it happens all the time, I'll see other resellers being like, "Oh yeah, I sold item A, and I sold like 3 of these in the last 2 weeks. These are really picking up," and I would have no idea because a year ago that would be something I would just scoff at, or I've already tried to sell, couldn't, ended up throwing it in the donation bag and just gave it away because it just never sold. And now all of a sudden it's back around again. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any advice in this section other than just to always pay attention and try to stay current. And I think we have the best resource of all, which is other resellers who are sharing what they're selling. I mean, that is your real-time snap into what, actually sells.
Yep, for sure. And I mean, I know a lot of times we talk about, not just picking up things you like, but I think that's why I gravitate towards sports jerseys a ton, because they sell for good money and there's always been a following, but it's a collectible thing as well as something you can wear. And then sometimes, especially recently, since I started doing in February, when I was doing a video every day and started showing everything that I'm selling, not just the things that I want people to see or I think that would be interesting or valuable information. Now I'm pulling the curtain back and you're seeing, like, I don't think it's good information to tell people to buy American Eagle jeans, which I sell all the time. I don't think it's good information for you to go to a thrift store and buy Under Armour sweaters, but I'm going to sell them because I'm picking them out at the bins for like $2. It's
Right.
not a really good really thing to do if you're buying at a thrift store, or you don't want to pay up for those items. So that's sort of my point. Is like, I'm not a trendy person. I just kind of look things up, and there's brands that I know do well. But like I said, because I can buy stuff so cheap, I'm willing to buy some of this stuff that's maybe not super valuable to sell. And you can see, as I was saying, the Poshmark numbers earlier, there's a lot of $20 jeans and $25 hoodies in there that add up to, about like the last 12 or the last year, about $20,000 on just Poshmark, right? Like it does add up, but it's maybe not the best way to go if you're paying up. So it's so hard to give advice when I know the way that I do it sometimes really doesn't work for everybody. And sometimes I feel even bad about showing that, because I don't want someone to go into Goodwill and spend $8 for an Under Armour hoodie and make $3 or $4 when they sell it for 20.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. Like, I think so. Obviously, viewers or people who are seeing this information, I mean, you need to filter out. You need to take all the information in. It can't just be like, oh, Jamie sells American Eagle jeans, so I'm going to sell American Eagle jeans.
Right.
Well, Jamie gets them for $2 and you get them for $7, and that's not going to work for you. So you need to, all of this is take it with a grain of salt and find out what works best for you. But, I guess I did kind of think about one little tip for me as a mostly clothing reseller that I should share now that I've thought about it before I forget. And that is, trying to stay ahead of the seasons. So we talked earlier about how, like, at the end of seasons, I'll sometimes do sales, try to clear a few things out, make some extra money, maybe bring in just, people who kind of watch the closet or whatever. But also listing ahead of the next season is a really good idea as well. So for me, yeah, women's dresses and stuff. I don't know how I ever got here, but I'm, mostly a women's plus size clothing seller. So like dresses and tanks and nice spring colors and florals and paisleys and all those things that, your average, like my mom, is going to love. I started picking those things up and listing them in February. You want eyes on those early, because people are going to start looking for those things ahead of season. Like, you don't wait until the middle of the ball season to find yourself a ball glove. Like, if you're going to play baseball that year, you're going to start looking for that a month or two before the season starts, probably, so that you're prepared for game day. And it's the same way with clothing or with anything, I think. Maybe not with anything, but I think with clothing, people do like to be ahead, especially with like the change in seasons, like winter into spring and then fall into winter, or like summer into fall. You're really talking about a big temperature difference. So people want to make sure they've got their wardrobe ready for that next warmer season or colder season. So getting ahead of that by a month or two. Since I started doing that, I've seen way better results, and I'm left with way less of that previous season stuff that I've got to hang on till next year by doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I know I just recently started like trying to pump out a whole bunch of sandals and like footwear like that are summer based. And yeah, you just see them just cycle out. Where if you're listing things like that in the winter, it's going to be someone going on vacation maybe would buy that. But you're right. I think stocking up for the seasons is definitely important.
On behalf of John and myself, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing for more content. I think this week coming, maybe Tuesday, we're going to do another live on my channel. It'll probably be 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want all the correct details, as I'm just sort of giving you a rough estimate of what's going to happen, basically follow myself or John on Instagram, and we'll definitely be posting the content there. But yeah, thanks again, guys. We'll see you soon.